This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Preseason football has finally arrived, and we're here to talk about it on the Hindsight 20. Jerry Mallory here for the Hindsight 20 podcast. I am your host as always, thanking each and every one of you for listening, a proud member of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, proud member of PrivateDetroit.com. We've waited, ever since that last game against Chicago. We didn't get the playoffs this year, and so once that ends, it's a bit of sadness. If you're a diehard Lions fan like myself, I know many of you are, we wait. And we're not completely there yet because we know September 11th is... that's the one. That's when we're completely there. But we're so much closer. Live football action, albeit preseason, albeit the first preseason game, but it is the beginning of what's going to be and what should be a very entertaining season. It's always the case with the Lions, up, down, anywhere in between. Diehard Lions fans love seeing that opening kickoff because it means we're that much closer to live, real, that counts football. The first preseason game is in the books. The show is going to be talking about that, the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll talk about units as a whole, first team offense, first team defense, et cetera, et cetera. And then we're going to highlight some key players, some that did good, some that did less than good. And as we look forward to our next game, the home bout against the Bengals, we'll look at a few guys that we want to see more from. Maybe we didn't see a lot from them in that first game, or we saw some bad things, we saw some good things. I've got, looking at this, 4 names that I'm highlighting. I'll give you the reasons why. And a narrative that we hear about the preseason so much. I'm going to kind of debunk it. I'm going to kind of shoot it down when people kind of poo-poo the success or the misfortunes of your second and third teams. I'll tell you why it's so important that you want to see those units do well, even if it's just the preseason, even if they're going against other subs, other guys that aren't starting, and we'll talk about that. So before we go any further, let's talk about the signing that just happened this Monday. Lions bringing in tight end Andrew Corliss. I like the signing. We've all had a chance to get a good look at this guy because he's played for the Green Bay Packers. I always felt as though he had a nice bit of physicality, very good hands, good receiving tight end. Underrated in my opinion. He has a 2-game suspension. There's been some conduct, some gun issues. So he won't be available those first 2 games, but we'll be bringing him in after that. You hear some conflicting reports. Some people are upset because they feel like, hey, Ebron's getting better. He should be back soon. This is going to derail Cole Wick, seeing him. And so why even bring this guy in? I disagree. If anything, it's depth. It's a camp body. There's no guarantee that he makes the roster. This also may speak about Ebron. We had the initial scare of it being an Achilles. Then we got some relief seeing it was just an ankle. But ankles can last a long time. It can derail you a good portion of the season. We still don't have the amount of information that we need. We don't know when he's going to be back. We don't know how severely the ankle is. There's different grades of sprains. They've got numbers. They've got mild to severe to, we don't know. And so perhaps the Lions are looking at Ebron and saying, man, he might be out for, 3-4 weeks in the season. Keep in mind also, Brandon Pettigrew, another guy with the ACL. We don't know how long he's going to be out. And so potentially coming into the season with Colwick and Mulligan and Orson Charles as your guys, I'm not that comfortable either. Even if Ebron comes back, I'd be more comfortable with, if you're going with 3 or 4 tight ends, potentially Corliss coming in, in that third game being ready. So you may start the season with a Mulligan, with a Wick, and possibly Ebron. And depending on how things go, you can then transition to maybe Ebron if he's still healthy, Colwick and Corliss, or Mulligan and Corliss. I know we like Colwick. We want to see more of them. And the hype train happens every year. It happened for Theo Reddick a few preseasons ago, and it panned out. Zach Zinner. There's always names. What was that receiver? His name isn't Miles Austin. The name escapes me, though. And I'm just saying pump the brakes on Colwick. All right, I do like the guy, but Corliss has had some success in the NFL last 2 years, 13, 14 before injuries. He had a combined of about 700 yards, 5 touchdowns, but very decent. And I think when they do use him, when they do go to him, because the Rodgers like to spread the ball, he was effective. So I like the signing. It's no guarantees that he'll be on the team, but it also may speak to Ebron. How healthy is he? Will he be out for a little bit longer than we expect? You need some of that veteran presence in there at tight end. I'm glad they did something. And when you're looking at the available guys, I think Owen Daniels was one of the first names that came up, but Corliss was right there as well. I didn't think the Lions would consider him based on the suspension and other factors, but now that, they're aware of it, they brought him in, I like the sign. You can't go wrong. I mean, I don't think he's going to bump anyone or take anyone's spot, and we definitely are thin. I'm thinking they'll do the same thing with linebacker coming up here soon, but we have to wait and see. Let's go ahead and talk about this game. Lions victorious, put up 30 points. That's really good. And we're going to talk about various units to start off. On offense, the skill position guys looked decent. Stafford looked sharp. A couple of those thread the needle passes. Marvin Jones, showing the athletic ability with his first down catch. They were good on third downs, converting on those, but that offensive line looked bad, and it didn't take long. It's the preseason. I'm figuring, oh man, I'm going to be okay. But the screaming and the yelling started because Stafford got knocked down just too many times, guys. This was such a big issue last year. And so Taylor Decker, Riley Reif, Travis Swanson, all of them looked less than, in my opinion. And you can probably include, I have to go back and look at this game again. I'll be honest with you, watching the game, but I was also preparing for my niece's graduation party. And I was the DJ. I had to cook some food. It was a lot going on. And I wasn't able to really dissect the games like I usually did, although I did watch it all the way through. But to me, Decker certainly looked outmatched. Harrison, who, defensive player of the year at one time, a little older, but still effective. He looked pretty good against Decker, right? That's saying the least. And it seemed as though the interior was compromised once again, even not allowing a lot of running lanes. So, I kept saying it last year, and that ugly feeling reaped back up that Stafford's not going to make it through the year if he gets hit 3 and 4 times. And that was one possession hit 3 times. That won't happen every time. That's an exaggerative number, but Stafford has been healthy, but it's not going to last if he keeps getting hit. So they're going to have to do something. They're trying to install shorter passes and different things, but he had no time. And I did not like that at all. So that first unit is going to have to step up. The first unit on defense looked really good. They were sharp. They didn't give up anything. Devin Taylor, one guy that stands out because that play in which he got a sack, it was impressive because he got held against their left tackle, Alejandro Villanueva, who's one of the better young tackles in the league, coming along. He held him. And I'm sitting there waiting for the flag like, okay, but nothing. Taylor didn't let that stop him. He continued his pursuit and he brought the quarterback down, which you like to see. Taylor's going to get a lot of opportunities. He's one of those guys that if we just want to sign him to a nice little 2-3 year deal right now, I would love to, because I've got a feeling this is the best time to buy from a low standpoint. Maybe you can offer him 3 years and $15 million because he hasn't really proven much. And that's a nice contract, guarantee a lot of it. His agent is probably thinking differently, and maybe him as well, because I feel like, he's had 7 sacks before as a reserve. With Ziggy getting a lot of attention, I can easily see this young man being in double-digit sacks this year, even if not double digits, at least 9 or so. And you look at the type of contract that Willie Young got a few years ago, similar position, young guy with a lot of talent that was shown. I think the Bears gave him about $7 million annually. And with inflation, I could see someone offering Devin Taylor next year a contract in the range of like 3 years, anywhere from $30 to $33 million. Seriously. Try to sign that guy now. Lock him up if you can. Maybe you can get him on the cheap. I'm expecting big things from Mr. Taylor this year. Now, moving on to those second and third units, those guys look good, man. They were sharp. You've got guys fighting for roster spots like Andre Roberts. He knows, what's up against him. Real quick, too, before we move on, I didn't mention Anquan Bolden. Love the catch. Love the run after the catch. He's a big boy. And when Stafford threw that ball to him, I'm like, who's this tight end? It was Bolden doing what he did out the slot. So that was good. Hopefully that's a sign of things to come. Supposedly he didn't have the best, like that first day he came, he looked good. And he's kind of slowed down a little bit, not looking as impressed with a few drops. Short sample size, small sample size, but look pretty good with that one catch in the run after showing some power. But moving on to that second and third unit, they looked good. Guys like Andre Roberts, guys like Rudock, they played well. Joe Dahl played well. And you like to see that. Now, here's that narrative that people like to mention that I'm going to kind of debunk. You oftentimes hear people say, yeah, they did good, but they're going against the second string. They're second string. They're going against third string. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to translate. You're wrong. Here's the reason why. Because in the NFL, we always assume that guys on our team are going to get hurt, right? Because they will. Starters are going to get hurt. The 11 guys that we have opening day, even if they make it to opening day, that's a great thing. The 11 guys on both sides of the ball, the 22 guys, they're not going to end the season that way. Injuries happen. So, number one, those second and third unit guys, some of them, will end up being first unit guys. And so you want them to look good. You want them to play well because it gives you confidence. Maybe their skill level is not as far off from the starters as we hope. The second part of that argument, that narrative, is who they're going against. People will say, hey, they look good against, Rudock looks good against the third defense, but, once he has to face first team, first stringers, if he ever had to, he'd be in trouble. That's true to an extent, but when injuries occur and you've got maybe a Joe Dahl moving into the starting lineup, guess what? The other team has injuries as well. It might not always be a direct correlation. It might not always be, your second string receiver now is pitted up against their second string cornerback because of injuries, but a lot of times it does work that way. And so don't automatically assume that your second and third unit guys, if they have to play, will be facing all first unit guys. Does not work that way. It's a lot of injuries that's going to be going both ways. So some of those matchups that we were winning, in theory, are some of the same matchups that you would see in real action in the regular season, because that team's going to have injuries as well. And so if, in theory, Joe Dahl is having success against the second team defensive tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I know we don't play Pittsburgh this year. Just roll with me with this analogy. There's a very good chance if we were to play them in the regular season, because of injuries, Joe Dahl, second stringer moved into the first string, may very well be going up against whoever's the second string defensive tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers, just like he did in the preseason. So if he has success in the preseason, it's a good indicator. And you definitely, if you're given options of your second and third unit looking good or bad, okay, no brainer. You want them to look good. I don't get as excited and thinking and saying they'll be just as good, but you want your second unit to look well. And just because it's preseason, they'll be going against some of those same guys because injuries happen on both sides of the ball. And it speaks to sometimes which team has better depth. And the first preseason game, you're not getting a lot. Sometimes all the preseason, you're not getting all the blitz packages, all the offensive packages, but that goes both ways as well. Whatever the other team is holding back, we may be just as well holding back just as much, if not more. So it speaks to your depth, which you like to see, and you want to see your unit, whatever unit it is, the ones versus the ones, the twos versus the twos, the threes versus the threes, you want to have success on all phases. And I feel like that second and third unit was much better than Pittsburgh, albeit the first game. And yes, with injuries and guys not playing, some of their second unit guys were in the first unit, it all gets scrambled up. All that being said, I like what I saw so far, and I'm hoping to get a little bit more from the guys on that first unit, particularly the offensive line, and we'll be talking about them in just a moment. All right, guys, when we return, we talked about kind of the units as a whole. We're going to go ahead and highlight some players, the good, the bad, all that in between, and then close out with a few guys we'll be highlighting for that next game. I'm excited, man. Preseason is here. I don't care if it doesn't count. It's just good to see the boys on TV playing against some other guys. We'll be right back after this short break, so stay right there for the Hindsight 20 podcast. Jerry Mallory here for the Hindsight 20 podcast. It's simple. Your ad can be placed right here. You already know what we're doing here at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. We're up and coming, but we're already established too. We've got some quality businesses already in the fray. They're reaping the benefits. If you want to hook up with this show, having your personalized ad, maybe even a segment mentioned in your company's honor, send us an email, hindsight20podcast@gmail.com. All right, guys, we're back on the Hindsight 20. I want to thank all of you for sticking around. Let's talk about some individual players. We'll start with the bad. What do you want first? The bad news, the good news? What do you want? I always like the bad news. Just give that to me first, and then we can move on. The bad news, I got 5 guys that I'll be calling out. 5 Guys Burgers and Fries. They play like hamburgers. Starting off is Riley Reef. You know, the transition to right tackle was supposed to be a success. And, okay, first preseason game. Relax, Jerry. I get it. Some people think right tackle is his natural position. Some will say, you know, his style of play says that. Training camp, he looked really good. He's on a contract year. Well, early returns, first bit of action, did not look good. He looked outmatched. Maybe he's played left tackle for a few years now, and that's what he's kind of leaning toward. I don't know, but we'll definitely be looking at him in the next few weeks to see if he improves. Taylor Decker, welcome to the NFL, man. James Harrison is old, but that old dog showed you some new tricks, and Decker looked outmatched, okay? We already know that run blocking is probably going to be his stronger suit, but he's going to have to be good in pass pro. And Stafford is going to have to play. He's going to have to be upright. And Decker, you're the guy. You look bad, all right? I know it's early. I think he's a hard worker, and he'll look at tape and he'll figure it out. But got to call him out. Same with Travis Swanson. I'm going on and on about this guy, and I just don't like the kid, man. And that pocket looked compromised. You compare that with, to me, Glasgow. It looked a lot better. I think Glasgow was moved up into the second unit. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I believe that as soon as the number 2s came out, it was not Icard, but it was Glasgow, which I like to see. But Swanson, man, I just don't believe in the kid. So maybe I look at him with a critical eye. Maybe he's my new Steven Peterman. I would always call him out saying how we need to replace him, but did not like what I saw from him as well. Jeremy Curley, you know, big opportunity. You know, that drop is huge. We brought him in. A big reason was because he did not drop a lot of passes. Very sure hands. Now, here's the deal. When you're fighting for a roster spot, you know what's up against you. You know the 3 guys, and I would say 4 guys, they're locks, okay? They're our 4 receivers, definitely 3, 99% sure 4 receivers will be Jones, Tate, Bowden, and TJ Jones, the other guy, Marvin, obviously, no doubter. There's only one spot, and there's some guys fighting. You know, you got Andre Roberts, you got Jake Lee that's trying to make an impression, and you've got Jeremy Curley. He had an opportunity on special teams and on offense to really shine, and I just didn't see it. That drop pass is huge. It's one. And he ended up having a few good passes after that, but he didn't step up on special teams like I liked. And when Andre Roberts is just outplaying you, you know, those are the 2 guys, you know, they may just look at Jay Lee and say, you're young, we like you, throw you on the practice squad and work your way up. It may be a 2-man battle. And then Jace Billingsley is in that mix as well. Jay Lee is the last guy. He just didn't get a lot of look. And why is that? We don't know. But when you're getting deep into the game and you've got, you know, guys you know are not going to be on the team, you would like to see more targets for Jay Lee. If anything, it's an indication that what we saw and what we liked is possibly, you know, it's not all there yet. I think they do like him. I think eventually he will, you know, he will crack that roster, but maybe not this year. And it was disappointing because he was one of the guys I want to see more from. I want to see a little bit more from Cole Wick as well. But Jay Lee is one of the guys that I'm kind of calling out. Now, the good, let's just start with Zach Zenner. And I'm just going to throw it out there. And this is my thoughts. Zach Zenner should be the number 2 running back on this team. I get it, the hype train. And if you look at his stats, I think it was like 7 for 24. He's a good runner, guys. And after Amir Abdullah, I think he should be the next guy, period. He hasn't done anything to kind of sway me the other direction, other than being young, other than, you know, the injury. I feel as though Zach Zenner is the next best runner on our team. That doesn't bode well for Stephen Ridley. Theoretic spot is secure. We know what he's good at, and that's what he's going to do. I like Zenner, and every time you watch him play, he runs hard, and he has some good moves, man. Kind of puts you in the mind of, I don't know, Peyton Hillis type of deal, whoever you want to compare him to. I like Zach Zenner, and he did nothing to dissuade that thought. And in my opinion, you rope the best guys. I feel like come regular season, he should be the guy that is sitting there and is your number 2 running back. The next guy we're going to talk about is Andre Roberts, receiver. This guy's a vet, man. He's been there. He's done that. He's had some decent years. You know, decent contributor in Washington for a season or 2. And so, again, it's kind of the juxtaposition, the comparison, whereas Curley didn't really capitalize on his opportunities, Roberts did. Jace Billingsley, too. You know, these guys are fighting. And, if I'm Billingsley, I know I've got the longest eyes of all of them, but all you can do is make the most of your opportunities, and those guys did it. And so I'll throw Roberts and Billingsley in the mix for both contributing when we needed them to. They're fighting for a job, okay? They're fighting to be on an NFL roster. Even if it's not ours, you show enough, and all these other scouts and teams are watching. You have an opportunity to potentially prove yourself to someone else. You're auditioning for the Lions primarily, but you're auditioning for all 32 teams. And you got to give them credit. Both of them look good. Some of our backup defensive ends, Anthony Zettel with some good pressures, Quintez Smith. The deal with Smith has always been very talented, but can he stay healthy? If he can stay healthy, he's going to go ahead and be a decent player. And so he gets a sack. Zettel gets a sack. You love to see that. Very encouraging. Rudock, I know you Michigan fans. He looked better than Dan Orlovsky, okay? Orlovsky, I could have easily threw him in that bad category. I don't know, man. He's the veteran. Caldwell knows him. He's going to beat out Rudock, and it is just one game. Rudock looked bad, or rather, Orlovsky looked bad. I don't know. Rudock, 8 for 11, 72 yards, moving on the ground. We saw that a little bit in Michigan. We like that. He ran the ball 4 times for 20 yards. It's a good deal, man. Again, going against the threes, that's fine. You play against who's there. And you shine. You shine against the threes. Maybe you move up to playing against the twos. Shine against you know how it goes. And so you got to give him props for looking good, playing against who was in front of him and being successful. And then there's Mr. Dwayne Washington, our running back. He has an uphill battle as well. I think his play kind of put some guys in jeopardy, like a Stephen Ridley, who just did not look good. Now, Dwayne Washington was a late round draft pick. The deal on him is really good hands, maybe even a receiver, potentially blazing speed. We drafted him for his blazing speed, and he looked good. You got the 2 carries for 12 yards. You got the 1 catch for 15 yards, and that's good. The kick return for a touchdown was very impressive because what they like about you, Mr. Washington, is that speed, is that breakaway ability. And so when you show it on the next level, it's impressive. Sometimes in college, you can get by on that speed, and your speed is you're going against these college guys, they're athletes, but you go to the next level and it's like, man, I'm not as fast. I'm not the fast guy anymore because these guys are just as fast. Well, Washington still, like he did in college, looked like the speedster that the Lions probably drafted him for, is that speed. Doesn't have a ton of moves supposedly, but he looked very well. Now, him making the team is going to really be based on him contributing on special teams because, as far as carries, he's not going to get a lot. He's going to have to be a contributor. And I love a guy that, he's aware of that. And so he looked good in special teams coverage and then returning for a touchdown. You love that. I don't like Golden Tate and Amir Abdullah as my kick and punt returners. Okay. I don't want them to do that. I don't want Tate returning punts. I don't want Abdullah returning kicks. Don't want those guys to get hurt. I know they may be the best at those spots, but if you got a guy like Washington that can conceal one of those spots, that can be, hey, he's our 4th string running back. Very good special teams contributor. Not saying, hey, let him get hurt instead of Abdullah, but I am kind of saying that. Just not a big fan of my main guys doing kick and punt returns. And so Washington, with a few carries he had, made a thing happen with the catching. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do next week. And we're going to close the show highlighting 4 guys that I'm looking forward to seeing next week. All right. First off, it is Jay Lee. Man, get in there, enforce your will, get some targets, get open, and make something happen. Roberts already kind of, in my opinion, like if we're doing the bubble situation, Roberts making the cut. And we're going to add this as our little segment at the end. And then we'll get into that in a second. But Jay Lee, you're on that outside looking in right now. So do something, make something happen. Taylor Decker, your first game, you looked rough. Let's see some improvement from you. Let's see improved play. Let's see you kind of rebound because we're counting on you. And that's the thing with a rookie. It can be so iffy and wishy-washy. We don't know. He's never played in the NFL, so we don't know how good or bad he's going to be until we see him. And so we want to see him rebound. Curly, man, you're on the outside looking in right now. You got to catch everything that's thrown your way. and you have to make an impact on special teams if you want to make this team. And then Washington, I think he's earned a few more looks on special teams. Throw him out there as your initial kick returner, see how he responds to that. Give him a few carries, move him up the depth chart just a little bit. Now, before we get out of here, there's always roster spots and there's bubble spots. Guys that are close to making the team, maybe guys even getting replaced. Here is just my gut initial reaction, probably overreaction. If you're looking at the first unit, now the word on the street was the Lions, the new brass, Bob Quinn, was not overly enamored with Laken Tomlinson. And I'm not saying Joe Dahl has taken his spot, but just keep an eye on that, okay? That's my little sneaky secret I'll share with you guys, that Lions brass, not crazy. The new guys aren't crazy with what they saw in Laken Tomlinson. Just look out for Joe Dahl, all right? In terms of roster spots, I think Ridley right now, if we were starting the season based on what we saw, Ridley out of the lineup, out of the roster, and Dwayne Washington, I'm writing it down. You got to pencil him in just based off the first preseason if we're starting the season this upcoming week. Jay Lee, Jeremy Curley out. Jay Lee to practice squad. Andre Roberts in as your fifth receiver. TJ Jones, you're keeping your fourth receiver spot. Anthony Zettel trying to move up that depth chart, as well as Quintez Smith. Hard to say what they could or couldn't do in terms of if the season started, but maybe they move up the depth chart and Wallace Gilberry steps down. These guys are fighting for spots, man. Taylor Decker, you keep struggling. I'm okay with shuffling this thing and saying, let's put Reef at left tackle to start the season and move Ola to right tackle. Let Decker work his way up. I mean, that combination was a lot better. When Ola was the right tackle and Reef was, at left tackle, it was decent. And, the offensive scheme changed at the same time and things started to mesh. So I'm not saying make that move right now, but what I am saying is let's pay attention. Let's look out. Let's keep monitoring. You want your best guys playing. All right. And so those are some of the guys on the bubble. Those are some of the guys that have moved up. I would love to say Rudock moves up, but I know the Lions don't think that way, and I don't want to think that way either. Let's give it some time. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this show. It's been fun. We have to look forward to preseason game number 2 here in Detroit against Cincinnati. We'll have more Lions goodness, potentially some roster shakeup moves along the way. So until then, I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. You can always find me right here every Monday on the Detroit Sports Podcast. Follow me on Twitter at Jerry Mallory NFL. You can catch me on PrivateDetroit.com as well. And until next time, I'm out of here. Peace.